Real men have guns. These kind of guns. Real men dominate women sexually. And they love it. Real men are players and have lots of side chicks and affairs. Real men laugh at dangerous activities and risk-taking. Real men are prepared to fight, and war is the ultimate in manly activity. Real men act confident even when they're not, because no one can make a man feel bad about himself, even if the criticism is legitimate. Okay, so this is what I call bravado culture. It's a subculture amongst men that believes that there are certain traits that define true masculinity. There are lots of gurus out there encouraging men to man up and be alpha males, and that this is the macho bravado kind of guru. Now, the concept of an alpha male is fascinating in itself. When you look at other species, it can seem obvious what an alpha male is. Take gorillas for an example. The alpha gorilla is a muscle man, bulging with insane levels of upper body strength, just perfect for fighting mostly other gorillas though. He is sexually dominant, he keeps a large harem of females and forbids them to have sex with any other males. He will fight and kill, or be killed by, any other adult male he comes across. He will even chase away his own sons when they get old enough to challenge him, while outright murdering the toddler sons of alpha males from females who are either already pregnant or breastfeeding when he kidnapped them to be part of his harem. Now, apart from sounding like a complete monster, the alpha gorilla has clearly been going to these bravado culture seminars because he has learnt the three core traits of hypermasculinity: callous sexual attitude towards women, the belief that violence is manly, and the experience of danger as excitement. Now, the funny thing about the question, what is an alpha male, is that if you ask any man to describe an alpha male, they will generally start to describe themselves. If you ask a weightlifter, he'll say the alpha male is physically strong. If you ask a scientist, he will say the alpha male is intelligent. If you ask an artist, he'll say the alpha male is sensitive and creative. If you ask a laborer, he'll say the alpha male is hardworking and looks out for his mates. And if you ask a drug addict, he will say the alpha male is chill and doesn't care what other people think about him because he's not insecure. What does he care what other people say about him? As a therapist, I think it's perfectly healthy for a man to see himself as being an alpha male, regardless of who he is. It would concern me more if a talented engineer with spaghetti limbs told me that an alpha male was a pro wrestler. And that's not because I've got any issues with pro wrestlers, but simply because this talented engineer seems to have low self-esteem because he doesn't seem to appreciate what he can bring to the table, what his gifts for the tribe are. But we have a problem here because if every male sees himself as an alpha, then what is an alpha male? And what is the correct masculinity? Well, if you've been watching my channel, you would know that I'm very interested in propaganda, and consider the promotion of the concept of an alpha male by the men who follow bravado culture might just be their attempts to subvert other males into believing that they're the supermen, because if they can convince you that you're inferior to them, then you cease to be a threat to them. They don't have to compete with you to actually prove their superiority. You've already given in. But this is because most battles are won or lost before they reach the fighting stage, because all war is psychological in the first phase of the conflict. Let's go back to the biology. It might surprise you to learn that the females of most species tend to be quite uniform, relatively. They are clustered around the middle of the bell curve, with significantly less variation between individual females than with the males of the species. This is largely because females are too precious to take risks with. A species that has many weird and wonderful females is more likely to die out than a species that experiments with many weird and wonderful males. Of course, exceptions like ants and bees exist, so it's only a general rule. But males are nature's experimental sex, and I'll explain this a bit. So, males are more diverse in their reproductive strategy. Observe this plate. Yep, those are two distinctly different males for the one species of focal stag beetle. So what's going on here? Well, something very interesting and very common in nature, that is to have a significant variation among the males of the species. How do we make sense of this? Consider that if you had two tribes, each had 200 members, 100 female and 100 males each. If a disaster happened that killed 90% of the males in one tribe, but killed 90% of the females on the other tribe, which tribe would be better off 100 years later? Obviously the tribe that lost the males instead of the females. This is because a single man can potentially impregnate hundreds of women, while a woman is limited to how many children she can have. This has led to some people saying that males are the disposable sex, because the deaths of males impact the survival of the species far less than the deaths of the females. But if males are the disposable sex, it also means that they are the experimental sex. They are the sex where you can try out new mutations and new strategies for survival and prosperity without risking the extinction of the entire species. This is why there are two very different male focal stag beetles. Both of these males have legitimate, effective survival strategies, and depending on which male impregnates a female, will decide what her male offspring will look like. This smaller male eats less, he's better at hiding, and not as good at fighting. This male is larger, very good at fighting, very attractive to the females because they just love those big mandibles. But he can't run away, and he has trouble feeding himself. So there are pros and cons to being either kind of male. So neither male variant dominates overall. In fact, if one male did end up dominating, it would lower the adaptability for the species that could lead to it becoming extinct. This is why there are so many different kinds of human alpha males, and why they're not necessarily wrong when they all say that they're the alpha males. Because if these men have a life strategy that works, that is to say they get married and have happy, healthy children, then aren't they successful? Aren't they alphas? This is a wonderful thing about human nature. We have so many different kinds of men. We have strong men. We have intelligent men. We have creative men. We have hard-working men. And we have kind and loving men. And we're all better for having them all. Well, most of them. There's also a small clan of men who are dishonest, liars, cheaters, and bullies. Basically, they are the criminals whose reproductive strategy is to lie, cheat, intimidate, and force themselves into success. These men are a problem, especially if they start trying to promote themselves as being somehow oppressed, or no different from any other kinds of men as having something to contribute to civilization, when in fact, if they were to flourish, they would take civilization down and return us to the jungle. Bravado culture isn't true masculinity. It's just one variation of masculinity, a variant that is arrogant and self-promoting. They are convinced of their superiority over all other types of males because their reproductive strategy is to pursue a power imbalance, that is to say, to dominate others, both men and women. Declaring themselves alpha males is just part of their psychological warfare to assert dominance through subversion. Remember that human males are completely different to the males from any other species. In all other species that I can think of, the males compete with each other, they fight with each other, they rape the females, and they bully and brutalize each other. But with men, they work together. They build things together. They laugh and they play together. They have friendships with each other. Most men don't rape women and find the idea of rape abhorrent. There is something truly amazing about men that we do not see in other males in nature. Yes, armies of ants and bees work cooperatively to build great things together, but those workers are all female. Only humanity has large numbers of males working cooperatively to build things together. So, it is only the human male who's evolved spiritually to stop competing and killing each other, and in contrast to what the bravado culture gurus teach, human women generally like their men to live and work together in peace and harmony. They think it's really sweet to see close male friendships and cooperation, and think men who compete and fight with each other for dominance are, well, jerks. Bravado culture came from the jungle and it needs to stay there. Bullying, tormenting, and putting other people down, that's not cool. Sleeping around with lots of women you have no intention of marrying, not cool. Sleeping with married women and ruining families just to feel macho, not cool. Talking yourself up and acting recklessly just to appear cool, definitely not cool. We live in a civilization where cooperation between people with vastly different skill sets to achieve great things is the name of the game. In the meantime, whatever kind of man you are, muscular, brainy, hardworking, compassionate, or whatever, so long as you are honourable, you're an alpha male in my book. Until next time, per spera ad astra.